just a second. All right. All right. Now, here's the thing. Let me set this up for you, because I think a lot of people don't appreciate what Descartes is doing here, right? This is one of the most famous arguments in human history. Like, everybody knows this argument. Like, philosopher, non-philosopher, and you know it in many different forms, and you don't get movies like The Matrix without this, basically, right? This is an ancient argument. And I might add, more or less still unsolved. Okay, but this is what Descartes' doing. Descartes' writing some meditations. And like any meditations, right? Now, no, Descartes was a Jesuit, which means he's Catholic. And particularly because he's from a Jesuit Catholic community, he's going to be really steeped in certain types of intellectual traditions. And one of those traditions is the meditation. And he was writing in the mid, I guess he probably died in 1640, something like that. But he's writing in the early to mid part of the 17th century of the 1600s. And he would have been very, as a Jesuit, he would have been very well aware of Ignatius Loyola's spiritual meditations. And as many of you know, particularly if you're religious, although not necessarily religious, sometimes you go on meditations. And this Jesuit priest, Ignatius Loyola, writes these series of meditations designed specifically for like priests and monks who are people who are going to, think about going into the church and so on. And then obviously for people who are already there. This wouldn't have been for your lay person necessarily. You sequester yourself. You're up in your cold room, probably wearing wool clothes, with no undergarments, right? You can imagine how that might feel. It's cold. You're going to be eating porridge and gruel every day. You'll probably have some kind of alcohol, probably a really low alcohol beer, because you don't drink the water really. And so on and so on. It's not real pleasant. And then in that situation, you're supposed to reflect basically on your relationship to God and humanity and so on and so forth. And week one, right? Week one is kind of like, it's the second exercise during week one. And it's kind of like the low point. It's a total beatdown. And so a meditation is like a reflection. It's a deliberate, considered reflection. It's something you were supposed to really take your time with, really reflect on, think of alternative possibilities, consequences, like really think about stuff, right? It's the point of a meditation. It is serious, it takes time, it takes effort, and it is exhausting. And week one, in the second exercise, you're supposed to meditate on how worthless you are. Remember, I'm setting this up. This is going to be dramatic, and because this is what Descartes is doing, just with a different subject. Descartes' not concerned about your soul. Ignatius Loyola is, presumably. It's a total beatdown. You're supposed to reflect on just what a piece of crap you are. You are, well, here, I'll share this with you. You'll see. Wrong one. There we go. Actually, I'm going to take myself out of the picture here. There we go. All right. So this is the second exercise, right? It is a meditation on the sins and contains in it, after the preparatory prayer and 2 preludes, 5 points and 1 colloquy. I'm not going to go through all of it. I'm just going to go through these first sort of 5 here. Actually, it's going to be the third point. So there's a prayer, there's a prelude. The second prelude is to ask for what I want. It will be here to beg a great and intense sorrow and tears for my sin. Remember, this is a meditation. You're supposed to be really involved in this, like taking it seriously and really considering this stuff, right? And so you're supposed to beg a great and intense sorrow and tears for my sins. You're supposed to beg forgiveness. intense sorrow and tears for my sins. Like it's explicit. You should be weeping and crying and begging for forgiveness. So here are the points. The first point is the statement of sins. That is to say, to bring to memory all of the sins of life from year to year, from period to period. For these three things are helpful. Look at the place and house where you lived, the relations you have had with others, and the occupation in which you have lived. And in all of those, you're supposed to ask yourself, how have I sinned in all of that? So everything from the time that you can remember till now, and all your relations where you've lived, all your interactions, how have you sinned? The second point, to weigh the sins, looking at the foulness and the malice which any mortal sin committed has in it, even supposing it were not forbidden, which of course it is, because, Catholicism and Christianity. But you're actually supposed to not just recognize your sins, but then start weighing them. Which ones are the worst, and then the least worst, and then so on and so on and so on. And this is my favorite one. And remember, this is a meditation, right? You're supposed to be seriously considering this. Third, to look at who I am, lessening myself by example. That's a key thing here. Lessening myself by example. First, how much I am in comparison to all men. What are you among all men? You're just one person among the rest of humanity. What's the world population? Does anyone know that offhand? Isn't it something like 4 or 5 billion now? I can't remember. The United States is something like 370 million. It's a pretty freaking huge, right? It's a lot of people. And who are you among that? You're a drop. You're unrecognizable amongst humanity. You're just one among 370 million in this country, right? That's nothing compared to the world population. If you were to blink out of existence right now, the world wouldn't know. How about that? Second, what men are in comparison to angels and saints? Not just who are you compared to humanity. You're nothing. You're just a blimp on the screen. Not even that. Compared to the angels in paradise, the realm of perfect being, what are you? You're a stain. What all of creation is in comparison to God. Take God by God's self and then compare creation to God. Right? It's nothing. God could snap his fingers and it all goes away. These are my favorite parts here, 4 and 5. To see my bodily corruption and foulness. To recognize, just literally like being an embodied creature, how gross you are. Right? So here's my example, right? You get into the shower. Yeah. You get into the shower. You get all nice and clean, put your deodorant on, your cologne or perfume or whatever. You get all nice, right? And just sit there. Sit somewhere. Don't be active. You don't have to be active. Just sit somewhere. And after about 2 days, you just start to stink. Right? You don't have to do anything. You just start stinking. Why? Because you're human. And then if you're active, right? It's going to cut that time dramatically. If you're active enough, within 20 minutes, you start stinking. You know what I mean? And then if you don't do anything, if you never take a shower, geez, I was on an airplane this past weekend, and there was this dude who just hadn't bathed in a long time. Like, you could tell, you could see it. You could see it, and you could obviously smell it. Like, it was bad. Bad, like bad, real bad. It was so uncomfortable. That's the point. And then if you keep not doing anything, like, it actually becomes unhealthy, right? You put your health at risk. And that's just being human. There's nothing you can do about it. And then he says, fifth of all, dang it, wrong one. Got my buttons mixed up. To look at myself as a sore and ulcer from which have sprung so many sins and so many iniquities and so very vile poison. And so this is week 1. This is only the second exercise. And if you're taking this seriously, and people did, and people still do, actually, people still practice this particular meditation, believe it or not. If you take it seriously, right? Like seriously, then it's a total beatdown. It is a recognition of how sort of worthless you are. And what's the point? What's the point of doing this? The point is to get to a place that's so low that nothing else sort of remains, and from that point to see if there's anything that is what's called salvific, anything that's able to be rescued, to be saved. And wouldn't you know it, for Loyola, what do you think is the one thing in his scheme, in this thing here? What is the one thing about you that is salvific? I'll ask. So I'll invite the question here. So anyone want to answer? So think Christianity. It's specifically Catholicism, but it's Christianity. Think Christianity. Take what you know about Christianity and ask yourself, what is the one thing about you in all your foulness and nastiness? What's the one thing that God would see in you that is redeemable? What do you think that might be? And you don't have to be, just really quick, hold on. You don't have to actually be Christian for this either. This happens in lots of other religions as well.
I'd say having faith.
Nope.
I was gonna say that it's we all have the ability to change.
Nope. Nope, not compassion. Well, the future, I mean, sure, but why would God do that? What is it about you? There's something specific about you, about all of us, about humanity that's relevant here. It's not compassion. It's not the recognize of our state. That's important. All these things are important for sure, but that's not the thing. There's one specific thing about all of us, according to
The fact that he created all of us, I guess.
So that's part of it. The fact that he created all of us, that's part of it. And then Muhammad says something about the soul. There you go. That's what it is. It's the fact that we were created in God's image. That's the key here. And that's the bright little gem amongst the pus and the poison and all the foulness that is human beings. It's the fact that you are created in God's image. And that's what you're supposed to reflect on. So, but it's hard to see the importance of that if you don't recognize, at least for Loyola, if you don't recognize how nasty you actually are, how foul and disgusting, and he says a sore and an ulcer from which springs all this corruption, right? That's who you are to God, except there's that little gem that you were made in God's image nevertheless. And that's what's savable. But again, it's hard to recognize the importance of that if you think you're just a good person, right? It is a total and utter beatdown. And this is what Descartes is doing, except he's doing it in terms of knowledge, right? So how does he do this? If I get my buttons right, how does he do this? So you should have read and you should have watched that other video. And so I'm gonna go. I should be able to go through this fairly quickly. So Descartes, that's all I really need. All right. He does this by presenting us with the following argument. One, the recognition that I have believed false things. I have believed things to be true that are not true. And here's the thing with that. Not only have I believed that in the past, but the recognition that I have believed that means that I am the type of being that believes false things. I have the capacity to believe false things. I am not a perfect knower. And if that's true, what is the likelihood that you believe false things right now? You just don't know it. Pretty high. It's pretty high. You've done it before, right? You've done it before. You've believed things that are not true, and you didn't know it until later. And when you knew, you tried changing your mind, right? So there are things you believe right now, like I mean, I'd bet my job on it, right? That you believe things right now that are false. You just don't know they're false. And so this premise here becomes really important because it's the recognition that you have the capacity to believe false things. And look what happens if you say, no, that's not true. If you say, no, it is not true that I've ever believed false things, you're saying that you only believe true things. You might be saying you are not capable of error, which of course you are, right? Like if you were incapable of error, you would be unlike any human being I've ever met. Right? And if someone came to you and said, "Oh, I only believe true things. I've never believed anything false." Like I had a student say, he told me a few days ago or something. It was something. Yeah, it must have been like Monday. He was telling me that he's never believed in things like Santa Claus, the Tooth Fairy, Easter Bunny, any of those things. He says he's never in his life believed that. And that's just really unlikely. And my response was like, I used to believe that too. But in conversation with some of my brothers, it became very clear that my belief was false, even though I don't remember it. Right? There's enough testimony out there to indicate that at some point in my life I did. And I have no way of arguing against that. And so I'm convinced now that in fact I did believe those things, at least at one point. Then he says, not only have I believed false things, but my senses deceive me. Not only have I believed false things, but the very mechanism through which I know things, like even mathematics, like the most rational of the sciences, right? How did I learn mathematics? I saw it. I heard people talk about it. I wrote, right? That's all sensory stuff. Everything you've learned has come to you some way through the senses. And what do we learn as adults? That our senses deceive us. Part of being an adult is you need to learn when to trust the senses and how to trust them, because you can't trust them 100% of the time. Do you remember being a kid and being on a road and you see the mirage of water, especially on a straight hot road? You remember seeing that? Do you remember?
Yes.
Right. Do you remember how much it took? You're still you're still confused. That's awesome. It's weird. I was gonna say, do you remember how much effort it took for people explaining to you that it wasn't actually water, and your little child brain like trying to figure out, but it looks like water, but it's not. It looks like water, but everybody's telling me it's not. And then you remember how long, like you never reached it. Like no matter how far away it was, you kept looking for it, and we're gonna get closer and closer and closer, but you never do. And it just, there came a point where you just accepted that it was a mirage. That's That's what he means. Your senses lie to you. And even still, we see mirages, and we see cognitive. There's these cognitive fallacies we have where we misrepresent the world. That's who we are, and that's what he's saying. And if that's the source of knowledge, and the very source of knowledge is corrupt, then your knowledge is corrupt. Means you don't know things perfectly, and that might be why you believe something that isn't actually true. I mean, this is serious. You're supposed to be like meditating on this. If you take that seriously, then this deals a fairly significant blow to your truth claims and what you can claim as being absolutely true, undoubtable. And if these two are true, as they appear to be, right? As they appear to be, then you can no longer claim truth in that with that amount of strength. But he says, okay, surely then, okay, my senses lie to me. Fine, I'm human. In one sense, no big deal, right? Because it doesn't actually change anything right now, other than maybe a small drop in confidence in my truth claims. He says, so sure, like your hands, right? So yeah, maybe my senses are lying to me about the exact color of my skin, or the exact, qualities of the shirt I'm wearing, or things like that, right? Things that, what does he say, that are really small or very far away. Sure, okay, no big deal, right? But surely my senses aren't deceiving me about the fact that I have hands. Not what color are my hands or what is the exact shape of each finger, but that I have hands. Surely my senses aren't lying to me about things like that. And he says, you would have to be a madman, insane, crazy. Now, I don't usually use that word crazy, right? Normally, and I'm going to use the term normal person as well. I don't normally use those terms, but for this class to make the point, I'm going to go ahead and use those terms. He says, I would have to be crazy. I'd have to be a madman. I'd have to be insane to think that these aren't my hands. Yeah, my senses lie to me, but they're not lying to me about like the fact that I have a body, right? The thing is, right? The thing is about being insane, apparently. What marks insane people from, say, normal people? Again, I don't typically talk like this. I'm just doing this for class to make a point here. But what marks insane people from, say, normal people? It's the idea that insane people think things that are real that are not. And so if I came to you and said, this isn't my hand, I don't know whose it is, but it's not mine, and you thought I was serious, you would think that there's something wrong with me. And there's a condition, it's actually called, I believe it's called imposter syndrome. And it's not the sort of popular thing that people say these days. Oh, I have imposter syndrome, and all that means is you're in a situation where you're not confident about what you're doing, but other people think you are. Like, that's sort of a social kind of phenomenon. It's not that big of a deal, right? Like adults generally aren't worried about things like that. Or mature people typically aren't worried about things like that, right? You understand your sort of place and what your abilities are. So it's kind of sort of a niche cultural like thing that people say. Imposter syndrome is a psychological dysfunction, like actual imposter syndrome, where you think your body or parts of your body or other people's bodies are not theirs. Like there are people who think like their wives or husbands or sons or daughters or fathers, mothers, things like that. Like it looks like their mom, but it's not. I don't know what happened, but that's not them. I know. Or this isn't my arm, or this isn't my hand. I don't know what happened, but I know my hand and this isn't it. Hold on. I'm going to get to that. I'm going to get to that, Johnny. Just hold on. Hold on. Don't anticipate me, man. All right. No, this is good stuff. So the thing is that if I said that, you would think there's something wrong with me, right? Yeah, absolutely. And this is kind of one of the marks of insanity, typically speaking. Now, having a dysfunction obviously doesn't mean you're insane, and I don't mean to imply that. But imagine if my whole mode of thinking was like that. Yeah? Then you would count me insane. Now, so if I said these were my hands, you thought I was serious. You'd think there was something like mentally like wrong with me, like some type of insanity or something. But here's the thing, right? Could you be? Could you be insane? Like presumably insane people also have like mundane experiences too. It's probably not true that all insane people have only insane thoughts, right? Like you could think this isn't your arm and that you're abducted by aliens and um your neighbor is an alien, right? You can believe all that and still recognize like the taxonomy of like birds and so on, and like recognize like cardinals versus a sparrow, and understand the whole ecology of birds, right? Which is a perfectly sane thing, right? Couldn't you be insane right now? Like don't insane people hallucinate, right? So you could be strapped up in a gurney somewhere, frothing at the mouth, right? Just tied up because you're in a fit of insanity and just hallucinating all this. A perfectly normal, mundane experience.
True.
Yeah. And if you say no, look at what you're saying. You're saying it is not possible that you are insane. But what do insane people say? Do they think they're insane?
No, they usually say I'm not crazy. When you say I'm not crazy, that's what a crazy person would say.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
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 so
then yeah, what you're saying is true. And I also think that insane people are really not insane. What if insane people crack the code to the reality, something that we people who can see can't see, but we just call them crazy or they can't see it or that. But like the true
yeah.
reality is like they crack the code of what they see, what we can see. Like maybe we have real celestial being out here, or we have ghosts or whatever, something they can see, we can't see. But we just call them insane instead of like trying to research or find out what they're really seeing.
Could be. Could
Yeah.
be, right? Right. But the point here though is that you could be insane. And you can't give 100% demonstrable evidence that you're not, which means you might be. Right? And so our third premise here is I might be insane. I've believed false things, my senses lie to me, and I might actually be insane. Now, right? And that seems true. Again, if you deny that, look at what you're saying. You're saying it is not possible. How could you, what kind of argument could you give that would demonstrate it is not possible for you to be insane? Just saying, just saying. So, now what Descartes does at this point is says, look, like, yes, you might be insane, but what do insane people do? Just like normal people, they sleep. And what happens when we sleep? We dream. And here's the thing, right? When you dream, we normal people, right? When we dream, what do you dream of? Do you not, in fact, dream of things that if you said out loud and expected people to believe you, they would think you're insane? When I was a child, I used to have this recurring dream. I still have recurring dreams. It's just a part of me being me. I have recurring dreams, not just the same dreams, but I have a dream and then it'll end, and then at another night I'll dream that whole thing again, and then it'll continue, it'll extend, and then I'll dream that again and then add another part to it. It's weird. But when I was a kid, I had this recurring dream. It was the same dream over and over and over and over and over for years, that I would jump off my front porch in the house I grew up in, and I would fly around the tree, one of the big trees we had in the front yard. And I had this jacket, my favorite jacket, and it was an evil jacket, and it would jump on me as I flew by the tree. And I dreamt that over and over for years. And if I came to you and said, hey, I was flying the other day around my tree and my evil jacket jumped on me, and I expected you to believe me, you would think I was crazy, right? But if I say, hey, I had this really weird dream where I flew around a tree and this evil jacket jumped on me, yeah, it's weird, but you're not going to think I'm insane. It's just a weird dream. Because what did you dream about? Like riding a dragon or something? Right? Right? Some of you dream of trolls, right? Some of you dream of being lost in space somewhere, right? Right? So you're not going to call me crazy because of the crazy stuff you dream. You just don't tell anybody.
True. That is so true.
Right? Yeah. And so Descartes' point here is a couple of things. One, insane people dream. Normal people dream. Everybody dreams, but not everybody's insane. Everybody dreams, but not everybody's insane. Everybody dreams weird things, things that if they said out loud, expected to be taken as true, people would think you would be insane. Everybody has that stuff. Right? Then, not only that, but if everybody dreams and everybody dreams weird things, and insane people expect people to think those weird things are real, what's more likely, that you're insane or that you're dreaming? What do you think? What's more likely, that you're actually insane or that you're dreaming?
Actually insane.
No, listen to the argument here. Everybody dreams, not everybody is insane. Everybody who dreams insane things. What's more likely, that you're insane or that you're dreaming?
Dreaming.
Right. It's more likely that sorry for my handwriting. I might actually be dreaming. That's a definite possibility. Haven't you had a dream that is so real that it's hard to tell the difference? Do some of you have memories of things that you are not sure if it actually happened or it was a dream?
You mean a deja vu or something?
Deja vu's different. Deja vu's different, right?
Oh.
Deja vu's is sort of a momentary intensive thing where you've had the feeling of having done this before. What I'm talking about, I'll read that here in just a second, Katadria. What I'm talking about is, like, for instance, there's memories that I have. There's of experiences that I am not sure if it actually happened or if I dreamed it. And I think all of us have those experiences. There's something that happened. You're just not sure if it was something from your dream, because dreams are real, aren't they? Dreams, not real, they're realistic. Dreams are realistic, right? And so I think all of us have some of these memories that you're just not quite sure if it happened or not. And if you have, right? What's going on in the chat? I'm not following this. So it can be said that we're all living in a it's not about a collective unconscious. This is about you. If you're in a dream, then you're dreaming all of this. It's not a collective unconscious. It's literally a dream. Because I've had dreams where I've met people I've never met before. I've heard a language and so on. Or when I've asked my friends, yeah, couldn't this be like that? Aren't those dreams real? And doesn't this seem real? Couldn't this be a dream? Can you give conclusive 100% information and argument that in fact this is not a dream? You can't. You can't tell the difference right now between dream life and this. In your dreams, if this isn't one, in your dreams are real. Even that insane stuff you dream, it feels real to you. They figured out where deja vu comes from. Yeah, I mean yeah, it's not intuition. It's not like intuition. Yeah, deja vu's always been kind of a mystery. The characteristics of deja vu um is you have a clear sense that an experience you have had before. It involves a certain type of memory, but not whether you can tell the difference between whether something is was that a memory you have is dream or reality. It's the notion that you get that you have actually done this same thing before. It has to do with not just memory but time. Like you've done this thing before. You've been in this exact same situation. You know what the outcome is going to be, and so on. Yeah. I'm.
Professor.
Yeah.
Um, I was just pointing out to them. I had seen this.
Yeah. Sure, sure. And that's one explanation, right? Um, the point being is the whole point of this about the dream stuff is that dreams seem real. Dreams seem real when you are in the dream. It's as real as waking life, and in waking life, you have these moments of these memories that you are not sure of whether it actually happened or not, whether it was a dream or whether you actually experienced it. And you'll never be able to find out. That's the point, is that dreams seem very real, and you don't have enough information to tell always which is dream and which is real life, which leads us to the conclusion that you could be dreaming, right? And so if you're insane, if you're dreaming, your senses lie to you and you believe false things, what does this do for your ability to make truth claims? It seriously undermines it. If all of this stuff is true, I mean, how do you block that? What can you claim is actually true at this point? Because everything you believe could be false. And to make matters worse, he has one final premise. He says, take the worst case scenario. Imagine God is fooling you. Now, he goes on, he spends a few paragraphs saying, well, it wouldn't really be God because God's omnibenevolent and no God worth worshiping would actually do that to you. And so he says, what about an evil genius? So you might think of someone who's maybe less powerful than God, but infinitely more powerful than you, like maybe Lucifer or something, right? Or just some evil. In some translations, it's an evil genius. In some translations, it's an evil demon. All you need is something greatly more powerful than you that can fool you. So it could be a great scientist. Yeah, brain in the jar. It's what I was going to mention. You could be some scientist who steals you away in the middle of the night, removes your brain and puts it in a vat and hooks you up to an experience machine. And so like the Matrix. And so all of this is just fictitious. In that scenario, but he really means God, because God's kind of like the ultimate. Like if God's fooling you, I mean, certainly God could fool you. Like if God exists, God could fool you. God has enough power to fool you, right? And so, worst case scenario. Remember, what is he after? He's after that shining little jewel, the thing that remains from. Let me give you this a term here. Let's pick a color. What color? Let's go with purple. what's called hyperbolic skepticism. Hyperbolic skepticism. What he's after is something, by doubting everything, can we find something that is undoubtable, that must be true regardless of your level of doubt, that nobody could doubt, that not even God could fool you about. And so in this scenario, God could be fooling you for whatever reasons, part of the greater plan, right? Part of the greater plan. God could be fooling you. And don't we say things like when mysteries happen, oh, well, it's part of God's plan and it's not for us to know and so on? Couldn't it be the case that in God's scheme of things, he needs to fool us for all you know? And if you say no, are you claiming to know the mind of God? Are you claiming to have infinite knowledge? Right? And so it's possible. And in that scenario, Descartes basically concludes, therefore, everything let's say this. Everything I believe to be true, I don't know why I did that, is possibly false. And that's the argument. That's Descartes' skeptical argument, or argument from skepticism, you might call it. How do you block that? How do you get around that? It's weird. Presumably you don't. At this point anyway. So this is that low point for Descartes, right? Like Loyola has his low point. This is the low point for Descartes. If you're taking this seriously, the question is what can you actually claim to know at this point? No. Accurately, truthfully. At the beginning of the second meditation, he starts off saying, how does he put it? He says, yesterday's meditation left me in such doubt. It feels like I've been thrown into a whirlpool, swishing around. I can neither reach the bottom nor the top, right? It's this blooming, buzzing confusion. How can I guarantee that anything I believe to be true actually is? And at this point, the answer is you can't, right? And if that's true, there's your knowledge. Your claim to knowledge is gone. So the question is then, does anything remain? Am I missing something? So what do you think that gem is? So imagine this state. Imagine the scenario where God himself is fooling you. Is something necessarily true even if God is fooling you? Is there something God couldn't fool you about, that even God couldn't fool you about? What do you think? Anybody?
Can you say the question just one more time?
Yeah. Let me rephrase it. So imagine I'm God. I can do anything. I can contradict the laws of logic. I can make 1 + 1 = 5, right? That's how powerful I am. So I create everything. I create all of you. And then in my scheme, I'm going to say, ha ha ha, I'm going to make everybody. And then the way I'm going to make the universe, I'm going to set it up to where I'm going to fool everybody. And I'm going to make them think that they're human and that they have clothes on and that they have hands and so on, but it's all going to be a lie, right? I'm just fooling them. Why? Because it works for my plan, and right, there's no, you don't need to know about it and so on. So imagine a scenario where everything you think you believe is possibly false. In that scenario, is there something that must be true, necessarily, cannot fail to be true, that even God couldn't fool you about?
Yeah, I know.
Go ahead.
I exist.
That I exist. Absolutely. I must. Why can I don't understand your question, Poe. If you could restate it. Here's the thing. In that state, even if God himself is fooling you, what must be true is that so long as you were being fooled, deceived, you must exist, because how can you be fooled if you don't exist? There must be something there that is fooled. And so that's where you get. So it's not true that everything I believe. There's one thing, and that is the claim that I think, therefore I exist. Must be true. Must be true. God couldn't fool you about that. And that's that gem, like Loyola was looking for. That's the gem that we can latch onto and, for Descartes, build up our body of knowledge. All right, comments, questions on that so far?
That makes me ask questions about. That makes me have more ideas and questions about AI.
Oh yeah. So there's when we get into behaviorism, identity theory, and functionalism in the last few days of this class, absolutely, because well, we're going to introduce something here in a little bit, in the next 20-25 minutes, that is going to be the source of some of the problems that we have when thinking about AI, that have gone unanswered for 350 years. But it's not just about AI. And this is what people fail to miss. It's not just about AI, it's about us. The same problems we have with AI, we have with us. But I'll point that out later. It reminds me of self-referencing statements. So that's interesting. That's really interesting. It's not a matter of self-reference. I mean, I can see why you say that. And humans have a problem with self-reference, right? We have a problem with circularity. But not all circles are bad. And self-reference isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? Like, for instance, there is nothing wrong with me referring to myself as an expert in certain things. Now, so long as I'm not lying, right, and making things up. But the reason I can call myself an expert in things is because other people have the opportunity to verify that. And so I know enough about certain things to call myself an expert in, knowing that anybody can verify that. So it's not a matter of me referencing myself. It's a matter of what information is there that can verify my claim. So self-reference in parts isn't necessarily bad. Even in places like mathematics and logic, self-reference isn't necessarily a bad thing. It becomes bad in certain situations. And in this case, it's not a matter of self-reference even. It's recognizing It's recognizing not only that I exist, but the fact of my existence, right? Or I should say the fact of there's certain facts that indicate I must exist. So even if I'm wrong about absolutely everything, right? Okay, fair enough. People, when they say self-reference, usually it's a pejorative. So all right, my bad. It's a recognition that even if I'm fooled about something, I must exist, and not only must you, must you, it's necessary. It's something each of us, according to Descartes, can claim that we cannot be wrong about. And you think about what that means for a second. You're human. You believe false things. Your senses lie to you. You have memories of things that you aren't sure whether they happened or not. And Descartes gives you a proposition that, in spite of all of your ability to make mistakes, you can't be wrong about. That's powerful. It's impressive. It's why I get so irritated when people put, like favorite quote, I think therefore I am, or it's in their TikTok bio, or it's something they put on Instagram or Facebook or something, right? It's a conclusion to one of the world's most important and famous arguments. And someone wants to put it in their freaking TikTok bio, right? Or a little bumper sticker. It trivializes the importance of the argument. And more importantly, what came after it. Let's turn our attention to that. What time do I have? I think I can do this in 20 minutes. Okay. Switch gears here. Now, we know we exist, or you, from your own perspective, you know you exist. And that's all you know. You don't know what you are. You don't know how you are. You don't know why you are. You know nothing. There are no qualities. All you know is that I exist. The question is what are you? And he goes on and he says, well, if I were to answer that question, I would say, I would answer, I'm a rational animal. Well, when you do things like that, you have to say, well, then what is rationality? And then what is an animal? And you're going to end up just providing this list, this almost never-ending list of descriptions and qualities, and you're not answering the question, actually. If I say I'm a rational animal and I have extensive definitions and examples and explanation of that, have I answered what I am? No, because each of those things themselves need explanations. He says, so I can't go that route. He says, so then what did I think I was? Now remember, he's answering from a Catholic and therefore Christian tradition, right? What am I? He's answering from this very familiar sort of Christian tradition. And he says, well, if you would have asked me and I didn't give you the answer, a rational animal, I would have said, well, what I am is body and what? Body and what? Soul. Some of you said mind. So hold on a second. That's what this is about, right? Now, the word soul, now, again, he's Christian here, right? But he's also like a philosopher and a bit of a rationalist. He's not like totally a rationalist, but he's an empiricist. He's a rationalist. And this comes from the Greek word psyche, which is where we get the words psychology from, and it gets translated from the Greek into the Latin, and it's the word we use for sometimes soul in the religious sense, or mind. And that's what Descartes meant here, was mind. And he says, so what is body? Body, right? And he's talking about human body at this point. Body is something that takes up space. Something that moves, has motion. Moves, motion. Right? Soul is thinking, deciding, planning. That says planning, and so on, right? And then he says, somehow, like if you were to ask me, somewhere soul interacts with body. That there's some sort of interaction between the two. He says, so this is obviously very, very sort of like what we might understand as like sort of very Christian, right? Or in some sense religious. There's body, there's physical stuff, and then there's the soul. And he says somehow the soul sort of interacts. He says, so if you would have asked me, this is what I would have said. He says, but look, now that we have this argument, he says, I can't say I'm body right now. Because remember, all of my senses, right, could be lying to me. And so I can no longer say that I am body. He says, so let's focus on soul. What do we mean? What is the soul? He continues again. A soul recognizes things. A soul understands things. He doesn't say recognize, but he does say understand. This is what soul does. This is what soul is. And so he says, let's do a thought experiment. So let's think about this. He says, take a ball of wax. Here's one of my candles. It's a great smell. Here's one of my candles. So take a ball of wax, right? So let me simulate this. So we take a ball of wax. So I take it out, right? Here's my ball of wax. Yeah. Okay. Now, let's describe its qualities. It weighs a certain amount. It smells, has a certain fragrance, right? Has a certain color. When I strike it, it makes a sound. You can't hear it. It's probably too soft, so I'll do this. Right? It makes a sound. What else? It feels a certain way. It's kind of cool to the touch, and so on and so on and so on. Now, take the wax and light it on fire. Bring it together, right? And what happens? What happens when you do that? Everything changes, right? It becomes... There we go. All right. You're not going to be able to see that, right? But it becomes transparent or translucent. It's solid there, but when you look at the melted wax, it's actually translucent. It lets light through. It smells, but it smells a little different. It doesn't smell like the original wax. It's no longer cool to the touch. That wax is hot, right? In fact, when you go down the list, all of its characteristics, it actually even, like the melted wax weighs less. It's going to weigh a little less. And on and on and on. All of its characteristics change. And he says, and this is the crucial part here. If you were in class, I have my water bottle and I pour some water out on the table, and that represents the melted wax. Here's the crucial part. that melted wax that you see, is it just any wax? Is it just any old piece of wax? No, it's not. What is it? Can you say it differently? You're correct, but can you say it differently? It is the anybody? Yes, it is the specific candle, but use the word wax, and it's another S word, but not specific. It kind of means means something similar. It's the what wax, starting with S. It's the same wax. It is the exact same wax, even though all of its characteristics have changed. And this is what's important. Remember, for the argument, your senses lie to you, and everything you believe might be true. And so all the characteristics like weight and smell and all of that could be false. It could be an illusion. But look what soul does. Part of what it means to be soul, to be mind, is to recognize and understand. Now, mind can't perceive other minds because minds are immaterial. Minds don't take up space for Descartes, right? They're not material. Gravity does not affect mentality as far as he's concerned. I should say mind, right? And it is the job of mind to perceive, to recognize, to understand. It's your mind that's doing that, not your body. And so, when that wax changes, your mind is perceiving change. The qualities of the change might not be real, but because it is the job of mind to recognize, perceive, and understand, when your mind operates like that, when it performs that function, it must actually be perceiving, recognizing, and understanding. What is it perceiving, recognizing, and understanding? Change. The details of the change are one thing. That might all be false. But that your mind is perceiving change isn't. And why is that important? Minds don't recognize other minds in terms of like it can't perceive a mind. But if your mind is doing a perceiving, if mind is non-physical, then the thing it perceives must be physical. Which means that not only is there mind in the world, hold on. Not only is there mind in the world, but there is also body. And by mind, we're going to use the term res cogitans. And by body, we're going to use the term res extensa. Those are the Latin words. Res cogitans, cogitans, as in cognate, as in cognitive, as in cognition. Res cogitans is mind. Thinking stuff, literally thinking stuff. Res extensa, physical stuff. Extensa, something that has extension, that extends into space. That we would say these days has mass. And body here means anything. It's not just your human body. This is body. This is body. This is body. Everything around you is body because it extends into space. And so this argument here, this is what's called the wax ball example, right? The wax ball thought experiment. Once you get to the point where you understand that I think I am, I think I exist, I must exist so long as I think I do, because something must be there to do the thinking. Once you come to that, then you do this experiment, this thought experiment, and you realize that what's happening is I'm recognizing my mind is doing something. It's performing its function. And since it can't perform that function on non-physical things because of you can't perceive another mind because it's non-physical, even though all the qualities of the physical stuff might be an illusion, nevertheless, your mind is perceiving change, which means something must be there to be perceived, and that thing must be physical, aka res extensa. And so the characteristics of mind, of res cogitans, are it is immaterial, non-physical, and it thinks. Res extensa, res cogitans is non-physical, it is immaterial, and it thinks. Res extensa, body, its characteristics are it is physical, but it does not think. It's just physical stuff. All right, and then I'm going to leave you with this. Let's see. How about this? I'm not going to get this right, but I used to be able to. What does that kind of look like? It would actually be a little bit more like that. Right.
Brain.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a brain. I did it really poorly. I used to really be able to draw a brain real nice. Let me give myself another shot here. That's better. It's still not good, but okay, there's your brain. And then let's let this be. So this is body. And this is soul. Yeah? Your brain is a physical thing, right? Okay, so so your brain is a physical thing. It's made up of cholesterol and neurons, and that's all physical stuff subject to the laws of the natural world. And then soul, I put it like a cloud because, how do you imagine a soul? Like, I don't know, like you can't draw it. So it's just like this vapor or a wind or something like that. Okay. So the question is then, well, okay. So the idea is that your beliefs plus your desires. Actually, let me do it down here. Yeah, let me do it over here. Your beliefs. Come on. Plus your desires. I am not spelling today, am I? Your belief plus your desires interacts with body to produce action. Your beliefs plus desires interacts with your body. Let's use a different symbol for that. Interacts with your body. How about I'm making this up, so let's do interacts with your body to produce action. Beliefs and desires are mental terms, not metal, mental. And your body, of course, is just body. It's extended matter. So the question becomes then, How does non-physical stuff, mind, stuff that does not take up space, immaterial, unaffected by the natural world, interact with something that does take up space and is affected by the natural world? How does that happen? This is what is known as the mind. I guess you can't see that here. As the mind body problem.